I don't understand people who make essays in the YouTube comment section. If you disagree with my last video, that's perfectly fine. I understand where you're coming from, but do you seriously expect me to read this essay in how wrong I am and expect me to reply to it? Why are you even wasting your time here? Why am I wasting my time here? I'm only getting up in a never-ending spiral of banter where nothing productive is gonna come out. I've experienced this so many times in the past in so many online discussions to the point where the only way for me to win is to stop. We're having a debate in a platform that will not lead into anything productive. If there's one thing that these people can do very well is baiting me into constantly arguing with them and wasting the precious time that I could have spent finishing Devil Survivor. That's precisely why I don't go to the YouTube comment section on my videos anymore. At least when I browse Twitter, I get to occasionally see spicy anime girls from my favorite artists instead of a wall of text. And speaking of Twitter, if you want to ask me or let me know about something, anything really, the worst way for you to let me know about it is through the YouTube comment section. You might as well talk to a brick wall at that point. That's why my Twitter exists and my DM is open. If you don't want to go there, here are the many other social media platforms that you can use to contact me, support me, and if you want to send me hate mails about how much of a prick I am. This video is not just gonna be me ranting about how comment sections are stupid, ineffective, cancerous, and addictive. I already did that in a video years ago. All the sources are linked down below, top to bottom. Check the first especially. This video is gonna be about an author who, like me, doesn't like the comment section, but at least my reasoning is because the platform is not good and not because I think everyone who disagree with me is a bigot. The writer wrote on a Twitter post that has been memed to death saying, "My culture is not a costume. Don't treat it like one." Ah, yes, we're getting into that cultural appropriation discussion again. Halloween has come early. The author then points into an article talking about how video game journalists are giving Mario a pass for wearing a sombrero in Mario Odyssey and other appropriation stupidity that we're gonna get into later. What's particularly amazing about this writer is that the tweet that this writer posts doesn't allow anyone other than the person that the writer approves to reply to the tweet. It's the new Twitter feature that is being used for people to prevent being ratioed, which is where the proportion of the reply is much higher than the likes and the retweets because Twitter doesn't have a dislike button. Just because you disable the replies doesn't mean that you won't get ratioed. This feature doesn't stop everyone from quote tweeting, and the number of quote tweets certainly ratioed the many other stats that this tweet has. Unfortunately, I could not find the quote tweets of this particular tweet because the writer went into protected mode. I do remember the quote tweets consisting of people telling the writer that they don't mind having Mario wearing a sombrero. The writer is not speaking for them, and the writer should go screw himself. But the writer is so confident in representing all Mexicans that he thinks that his opinion should be taken as gospel, and any Mexican who dare to disagree are either closeted bigots or Uncle Pedro's. Another thing that I find amazing about this writer is this tweet asking people to hire him on the typical topics that any current year political activist would talk about. We're gonna judge your writing skills the moment we get to your 3-year-old article that you're so confident in posting to the world that you have to remind people of its existence and not let anyone to reply to your tweet for daring to disagree. But I want to bring attention to another excellent Twitter feature, namely the hidden reply. I absolutely love the hidden reply feature. It's an absolute gem because it tells us quite a lot about what the Twitter user doesn't want the world to see. The writer uses the hidden reply feature for one particular tweet. So what is this tweet that is so awful and toxic that the writer has to hide it? It's a tweet from someone who says that they're Japanese and how the writer shouldn't speak for them in regards to the political topics that the writer loves to talk about. I think that's a good point, writer. Why would you hide this tweet? Are you afraid of confronting the person for this legitimate criticism? Well, considering that the writer got into protected mode, apparently yes. The writer doesn't want to confront anyone with any sorts of legitimate criticism. There's a very good reason why the website is named Unwinnable, and that you cannot win any discussion with these people, and they prefer to just spread the progressive gospel without anyone challenging it. Considering that the writer wants this article to be relevant again, why don't we talk about it? The writer began by saying video games have a bad track record when it comes to representation and cultural appropriation. And you are somewhat correct, writer. I mean, Uncharted 1 seems to love killing Southeast Asian folks, particularly Indonesians and or Malaysians, but unlike you, writer, I don't see that as a problem because they're human beings who are capable of being pirates, and I'm referring to both digital pirates and actual pirates. Sure, it would be nice to have a game with an actual Southeast Asian protagonist and preferably not from a game company that got involved in scandals for inappropriate behaviors. But that's the extent of the discussion. It will be nice. Representation is not a necessity, and anyone who thinks otherwise are usually entitled Americans. One of the most baffling arguments for representation that I've seen is when someone says that it is important because for most people, media is the first place that gives people some perception of other people that are different from them. I don't know about you, but instead of making media to be closer to reality, wouldn't it be more effective to educate people that media is not reality? I'm not learning black culture from watching Boondocks, or any culture for that matter, but you should watch Boondocks anyway.
Throwaway lines in art books are clear reminders that the culture of one or many is just a neat design to someone else.
Oh no! How dare they find someone else's culture to have a neat design? That's just bigoted.
Luckily, in today's more socially aware culture, writers and editors all over the internet took the chance to say something about it when something problematic pops up in a major release, right? No.
So, in other words, people are not as woke as me, and that is bad. The writer then says, Mario in a sombrero and poncho fails the basic, my culture is not a costume test. I don't even know that such a test existed. The writer cited a Teen Vogue article. No, really, a freaking Teen Vogue article, and the writer expects us to take him seriously after that. The article is about the exact same thing, but the article tells me to watch the video to see the 6 brave women explaining how it feels to see their culture worn and discarded. Yes, the article unironically said 6 brave women and expect you to take it seriously. The article isn't just talking about people wearing the costumes disrespectfully. If you're not the owner of the culture, you're simply not allowed to wear it. That's the entire argument. It's the kimonos are offensive discussion all over again. The writer of this article goes even so far as to tell video game characters that they're not allowed to wear it as well. Why? Because Mario, Nintendo's most beloved Italian stereotype, is not allowed to wear a costume of a culture that doesn't belong to him, especially when the developers are Japanese. I love this part too. The writer cited one review from Wired talking about how Super Mario Odyssey has problems with cultural representation. Then the writer cited one paragraph that apparently every single one of you progressive allies should take notes from. The paragraph boils down to how the game is just being oblivious to its own dream world and how the game just throws the section once to be never seen again. So what? You already have a negative opinion about the entire section and now you expect Mario to do it more? Make up your mind. But that's not the part that I love. The part that I love is when the writer said that the writer from Wired is delivering a take that no other writers and editors of nearly every other major outlet found the time to write a paragraph about something that the writer agrees with. I'm amazed to the extent of how bothered you are that the people around you don't have the takes that you agree with. That's basically me with Bunny Girl Senpai. But then the writer frames this paragraph from Wired as a good thing and talk about how it's a criticism that we need in games. Isn't it amazing that every progressive always framed their criticism as correct and how everyone else is wrong for thinking otherwise? Well, sorry to say this, writer, but I'm not seeing any criticism delivered throughout this entire article. All I'm reading is how you're personally bothered that Mario is wearing a costume that you don't want him to wear. Also, this overall mindset to criticize something that you love when it has problematic elements is only hurtful and toxic to the medium as a whole because they're over-exaggerated nitpicks who you should all focus on because of moral obligation. This entire article has gone way beyond nitpick. The overall point being delivered is bad, and the writer still proclaimed that he will speak over both Japanese and Mexican people, but the problem is you also identify as an American, and you carry their stupidity alongside it.
Instead, the silence of publications that have been lauded for the inclusivity and diversity is deafening. You cannot be an ally only when it suits you.
Gold freaking clap, writer, for standing up for diversity when no one else does. Pat yourself in the back for this amazing accomplishment. You are correct, writer. You cannot be an ally only when it suits you. The one way for you to be an ally for inclusivity and diversity is to dismiss the opinions of everyone who disagree with you, and especially if they are 100% the race of someone you are representing. I don't even know why I'm even arguing against this dumb point when I can just go back and play Fire Emblem Awakening on Steam. The writer went on to use one paragraph to make a disclaimer. Whether or not you find Mario in all but brown face to be particularly offensive relies on your personal taste and experience. Good heavens, writer, are you saying that being offended by brown face is personal taste? I didn't get that impression a couple of paragraphs ago when you make a moral grandstanding out of this entire thing, especially the tweet that you make which insinuates that this isn't morally right. Is it a personal taste or is it a moral stance? Make up your mind. But that's not the funniest part. The funniest part is when the writer says, what's not subjective to taste is the gaping void created by the lack of conversation. A lack of conversation, you say. Would you agree that blocking people from replying to your tweet also contributes quite a lot to this lack of conversation? Not that Twitter is a good place to have conversations in general, but at least I offer alternative methods and not just straight up tell people that they can't or not allowed to disagree with me. At least I didn't immediately go to protected mode. The writer then had this moment of revelation by saying that some of the reviewers who don't write the articles in the way that the writer specifically wanted might have not been offended by this entire thing. I don't get it, writer. You were talking about how offense is a personal taste and now you're saying that everyone should be offended, or at least mention the fact that people can be offended by it. This is why your criticism is trash. It's because you present two completely opposite viewpoints and expect us to accept both of them. The writer then continues to hammer this point home by saying, well, I understand why you're offended, but you absolutely should be offended. It's a moral obligation to highlight the insensitivity that you have. Your silence is deafening. Where are the writers that agree with me? That's what the paragraph boils down to, and it sounds about as pathetic as you can get. This is you seething on the fact that other writers don't agree with you. Here's another brilliant argument. Even more charitable is the idea that no one thought it was their place to speak on the subject. Who gets to determine that? Wow, writer, that's one hell of a take. So you're not okay with people who don't own a particular culture to take somebody else's culture, but you are okay with them talking about it and take offense towards someone else who did it. Are you giving permission for the majorities to be offended on behalf of minorities? Of course you would. That's basically what you've been doing this whole time. This entire paragraph is amazing. The writer tries to put himself on a freaking pedestal as an absolute exemplar of progressive ally by talking about giving diverse people voices, and by diverse we mean people who agree with the writer. If you're 100% Mexican and don't find any of this offensive, congratulations, your opinion is dismissed because the writer has to speak over you or else we couldn't spread our progressive gospel. What I find very interesting about this article is that at no point in this entire thing where the writer have ever really explained why it's bad, or at least explain it with a good point. The writer's point in why it's bad basically boils down to the fact that Mario doesn't own the culture and Nintendo doesn't own the culture. That doesn't explain why it's bad. It explains why people are offended, but people are offended by anything these days. That doesn't make them bad. And as you said, it's a subjective viewpoint, but you are very insistent that your subjective viewpoint is the correct one. It's like reading a glorified internet comment, and that's precisely why I don't go to the comment section and why you should air your complaints in the following links instead.